7 days on from an incredible Aintree Festival and a Grand National. We move on to the Scottish version, the feature of the jumps action at Ayr. We've also got some brilliant flat race to look forward to. Jason Weaver is back to preview that for us very shortly. Because as you can see, Frankie Foster is alongside me. What we saw at Aintree, Frankie, has had a bearing on what we're going to see at Ayr and now for the remainder of the next couple of weeks, because Willie Mullins not only stole the show, he took a shed load of prize money as well. We've got a proper trainers battle. Dan Skelton and Willie Mullins will be throwing everything at it, starting at Ayr this weekend.
Yeah, I love this, Matt. I think it makes for a real entertaining end to the season. I'm sure Dan Skelton doesn't love it, but for us viewers, I think it's fantastic. I'm actually going up to Ayr on Saturday. I've been booked in for a while, and selfishly, when Willie Mullins started to have so much success at the Aintree Festival, I was thinking, go on, this is going to make my Ayr trip a lot more exciting. And it does. It's brilliant. You know, we saw last year when on the final day of the season, everyone turned up with the Willie Mullins masks on, and it was a bit of fun. And he's great for it. He entertains it as well, doesn't he? So, yeah, the Mullins raid is on. I will say it takes me a few selections or a few races to get a Mullins fancy in, but they do come. I would be very surprised if he leaves Ayr without a winner on Saturday.
Okay, let's have a look then, because I say running through the card is the Dan Skelton versus Willie Mullins kind of rhetoric for the trainers title. I've got entries in almost everything, starting with the 2-miler. 2-mile handicap chase that kicks us all off at 110. Dan Skelton's got Etalon. Willie has got Western Diego. Are either of them in your thoughts, or do you think this could be played elsewhere?
Western Diego's definitely got a good chance. I guess I was almost trying to take him on somewhat because I didn't want to put a Mullins horse in every race. I do think he's maybe one of their weaker chances. Etalon hasn't had the season we'd hoped, has he? I think everyone thought he was just kind of up to a good handicapping game, but then there's been some races where you probably would have hoped that he would have won, and he hasn't. So I'm not quite sure where to place Etalon anymore. Tommy's Oscar won this last year. Trapper in Law was second in this last year. Probably wants softer ground, Trapper in Law. So I've gone all the way down to Hon Publique for the Greenhall Guerrero team, who obviously trained Iroko, to separate Willie Mullins having a 1, 2, 3, 4 in the National, the only horse that could get near the top 3 from anyone else, and highest trained British horse, obviously. A good bit of form. He's managed to beat Tommy's Oscar his last start over fences behind Brookie. Brookie went on to come second in the Maggle at Aintree. And that form actually looks quite strong. He hasn't necessarily been put up a pound for that. Had a spin over hurdles last time out. I don't know whether this was the target and that was intended to keep his handicap marked down, or they just thought he might have a squeak over hurdles. But either way, he's got form in the book over Tommy's Oscar, last year's winner. And if he sets the standard and Hon Publique can get the better of him again, then I feel like he's potentially overpriced in here.
Okay, then, yeah, Hon Publique has had a decent season. Let's have a look at the 143, the Champion Novices handicap chase over 3 miles. I know we were all over Masaccio at the festival, and he kind of ran a cracker to finish third on that occasion. Whistle Stop Tour never really went a yard in the ultimately pulled up. So a couple there from Cheltenham. And again, Willie and Dan are represented, trying to get, what is it for this one? 25 grand towards their total.
Yeah, Masaccio, I feel sorry for him. He's a bit of a boat, really, isn't he? A talented boat, but he doesn't quite have much of a finishing kick. And that was shown over 2.5. He might actually now get his head in front over 3 miles. I do just think to get that, he kind of needs everything to go in his favour, doesn't he? He's carrying a lot of weight. There probably will be something that comes up sides to challenge with just a bit more boot at the closing stages, and that is where he struggles. So you might be looking at another second or third place from him. He's finished third the last 3 times and second before that. So a great horse, but a little bit one-paced. Lachlan will obviously have a chance. He's finished behind 2 nice horses. His last 2 starts, he was 2 and a bit lengths behind High Class Hero, obviously a very good hurdler last season and has done all right over fences. He also finished only 4 3/4 lengths behind 3-card Bragg. So nice form coming in, but I've kind of got to stick with Whistle Stop Tour here because he was one of my fancies for the Ultimate, and he was pulled up probably not to fault of his own. He got badly hampered, and as a result, the race was never his. He's won over course and distance already. I think the race that they ran him in after that over 2.5 was simply a prep for the Ultimate, so I'd ignore that. And back to 3 miles and back to where I'd say he's got a strong chance. And remains probably well handicapped as a result of not putting in a good performance that I think the team would have been hoping for at Cheltenham. So I'm sticking with my ultimate selection in Whistle Stop Tour.
Okay, then, yeah, Whistle Stop Tour. They still won the race, didn't they? The Rosters. Right, before we talk Champion Hurdle, just to say to please like and subscribe the Punters Guide. And of course, we'll inform you whenever there's a new channel available. And now you can take us wherever you go. We are available audio on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast from. So you literally, there's no excuse. You can take us with you. You don't have to see us now. You can listen to us as well on Spotify. But please like and subscribe. Brings us to the Scottish Champion Hurdle, because those people who join us regularly, Frank, you've been banging on about Favour and Fortune, who won this race last year. Hasn't quite worked out for him, but he's not back this year. Willie Mullins is throwing a load at it. There's also a couple on the comeback trail. Valgrand, I thought was very disappointing for me, personally, in the County Hurdle. And Dysart Enos as well, also on the comeback trail. Yeah,
there are a couple, aren't there, that have got a race in them to kind of prove their ability. Favour and Fortune, gosh, how many seconds and thirds, or in the places at least, has he had in big handicaps? It hasn't worked out for him. Was he third, I think, again at a big price at entries? Not a bad horse to follow each way, but yeah, it would be nice if he could win a race at some point. I think this is where the Mullins domination does come into play. I find it really hard to see a classier horse in here than Ethical Diamond. I know that he carries 11 stone 12, so he is weighted as the best horse, or up there with the best horse in here. But fourth in that county, I think, is just such good form. Carget's obviously won it, carrying a couple of pounds less than what Ethical Diamond did that day. And Darwy, class horse. Absurd was the previous year's county winner. I just think Ethical Diamond will be too good. And honestly, as I looked through it, if I was trying to take Ethical Diamond on, I probably would with Bunting, the other Mullins horse, who was the choice of Paul Townend's actually at the festival. And that race didn't work out that day. But Bunting could, if you look at early form, could be on a reasonable mark. But yeah, I kind of almost ignore the handicapper here and just think Ethical Diamond might be a class above.
Okay, then Ethical Diamond, top weight in the Scottish Champion. We've got a mare's handicap hurdle as well, the 3 miles. Again, Willie Mullins represents, got Ardent Fabulous. Brian Hayes rides this one, which I thought was a little bit of a surprise. I was really taken with Lavidia Adiva when she won at Kelso. I know we fancied Why Not that day. I thought she was very impressive in winning that. But again, it doesn't go to post. It looks a wide open contest.
It does, Matt, but I think you've got to give credit to Lavida Adiva. And dare I say, if she was trained by someone else and put in that performance, she'd probably be shorter for this race. I think you've got to give her respect. That was a listed race. There were some nice mares in there. She did it easily. There's no reason why she can't do it again. I know that there's an army of mares from all over lining up to take her on, but she's got the form in the book for me. And I thought her price was a bit disrespectful to the performance she put in last time. So I hope she can back it up, because it'd be great for Ruth Jefferson to have a nice mare on her hands.
They are, both with Lavida in the mare's hurdle. And then the big one, the Scottish National. Willie throws 6 at it. He's even got Harry Cobden off the bench to come and ride for him as well. I mean, we've got this. I mean, I was reading Paul Keeley in the week in the Racing Post on about this Chosen Witness. He said if there's any other horse, he'd be 50-1. Why is he so short? Just because he's coming from Willie Mullins' yard. I mean, he's shown very little over fencing. He makes a valid point. But I suppose I could have said the same about McDermott last year when he came and won. But there's some really nice types in here, isn't there? It's a proper decent handicap, as we should have on a Saturday.
It is, yeah. What price for Mullins to win it? Even money? Something like that. Would you take that? Would you take even Mullins? Even money for Mullins to win the Scottish National?
What's he got?
He's got the first. He's got the top 3 in the betting. He's got Cobden on Captain Cody. He's got Spanish Harlem, ran 6th in it last year and is off a couple of pounds lower. He's got Johnny Burke on Climb. It's ridiculous how many he's got.
It's not far off even money, I don't think, that he does win it with those prices. Yeah, he's probably around an even money shot, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd struggle to back against it. I don't think I'd lay you even money for it anyway. Chosen Witness. He's an interesting one, isn't he? I suppose you can try and read between the lines. He did win a big handicap hurdle here last year, over 3 miles. So that kind of shows you that he'll stay and he'll like the track, I guess. He hasn't done loads over fences, but at the same time, he's ridden over or raced over slightly shorter trips behind classy horses. He was well beaten, but that beginner's chase at Fairy House was won by Champ Kiley, who's a proper Grade 1 horse. So he very much is an unknown bet, but I do think if you read between the lines, then you could potentially argue that there is some talent there. And maybe given that he won here last year, as others, this might be a backup plan. Maybe this was more of the plan for him. I don't see why McDermott is almost twice his price, though. Last year's winner and relatively unchanged in the weights. Like, how many times have we seen it with Mullins horses where they haven't had much form, but then for the right race, they will be bang on. And you just know that he will be bang on. And Danny would love to ride another, that the owners would love to win another. And if they thought that this race suits him, then Willie Mullins has the arsenal, doesn't he? Just to say, right, McDermott's our Scottish national horse. So I certainly wouldn't rule him out. If I'm trying to look outside of the Mullins lot, which I probably should do, Walking on Air is savagely handicapped on his best form. Whether or not he can do it for his new trainer, whether or not he can do it in a Scottish national is quite a big ask. But you never know. Off a nice lightweight, he might just kind of pop round under Richard McLernan and be in with a chance in the finish. So I do think Willie Mullins will win it. I think McDermott is probably slightly overpriced considering he won it last year and Mr. Mullins trains him. And I think Walking on Air is just interesting off a nice low weight.
Okay. Couple against the field then for the Scottish National. Right, before we talk the flat, what's your idea of a best bet on the card?
I think I've got to be fairly straight and keep it simple with Ethical Diamond. That county form, that is like the top four in that are seriously good 2-milers. So, yeah, I think Ethical Diamond can back up a good performance at Cheltenham here.
Brilliant. Right, before we join Jason Weaver then and get his thoughts on the flat, you got a look at card of the Newbury. I know you've been around and about some of the yards, haven't you, in recent days?
Yeah, had a good 2 days. Went into Andrew Balding's, Dan and Claire Kubler's, went into Jamie Osborne's, and then finally at Rafe Beckett's, which probably gives me the most to talk about this weekend. But there was little snippets of horses coming through for the next couple of weeks, these early summer festivals. I think Bright Times Ahead, he was most kind of perky about. She runs in the Fred Darling. It was really interesting listening to Rafe, actually. He was talking about how his season pans out and how he is a lot slower than most trainers to get going, almost by design. He likes to give them as much time as he can. He's never panicking about getting winners in early in the season. He referenced the COVID year when I don't think he had his first, it was something crazy. Like he didn't have his first winner until July and he still crossed the 100 mark for winners by the end of the season. And he said that year really taught him that he doesn't need to rush things. So I'm not suggesting that Bright Times Ahead is a bet for the Fred Darling, but I think he was really positive about the season she might have ahead of her. So maybe if she does run a reasonable race, this is a filly to keep on side, maybe for the 1,000 or even as the season progresses. He was pretty positive about what she might turn into, at least. Bright Times Ahead.
Yeah, he always seemed to be strong, doesn't he, Rafe Beckett, towards the end of the season. Of course, the Fred Darling is a trial for the Betfred 1,000 guineas. And then we've got the Greenham as a big trial for the Betfred 2,000 guineas to look forward to. And then we've got the Craven Meet in Newmarket next week. The summer really is blowing up. We are so excited here to be sponsoring, of course, all 5 British Classics at Betfred. But let's get the thoughts then of Jason Weaver. He's going to join us through the flat season. He'll be at Newbury on Saturday afternoon. But we started actually by talking about maybe a jockey and a horse to follow for the next few months. Well, it's a brand new summer. It's an exciting summer as well, with Betfred sponsoring all 5 classics. Jason will be with us throughout the summer. A lot Newbury to look forward to this afternoon with some classic trials. Pointers for the Betfred 1,000, 2,000 guineas. But it's a long season, a long flat summer. Give us a horse and a jockey just to keep an eye on over the next few months.
Well, I've been looking at the jockeys, obviously, all throughout the winter, and there are a few that don't make too many mistakes. I'll highlight a couple for you. One of them is Lewis Edmonds, and one of them is George Wood. Now, both of them are very, very talented riders. The main reason that George Wood would probably be the major highlight is because he's attached to Harry Eustace's stable. Young, solid rider, come up through the grades, and he looks set fair to get some real big opportunities for his boss. Talented jockey. He's a lot to look forward to this year.
We are then a couple of pilots look forward to. Is there any horse that stands out, whether he's the classic generation or the older horses to look forward to?
Yeah, look, I've been banging on. If you want a classic horse, I've been banging on about Rudin Court for a long time, and he was super impressive over in Dubai. But everybody knows about him. If you want a dark horse to follow for the campaign, and he'll be in the sprint division, so the opportunity that we'll see him quite regular. It's a horse called Storm Boy, who's been shipped across from Australia over to Aidan O'Brien's. Now, he was a pretty decent performer down under. We know how good their sprint division is, and he actually ran really well in the Everest. So look, he's over there, he's training well, he looks a million. Sprint division, could we have a superstar, an Aussie superstar trained by Aidan O'Brien? Could do, Storm Boy.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've had one that's a standing dish, haven't we? It's been shared out the sprinting division, so have we got a superstar? We'll look forward to seeing him. Looking forward to Newbury this weekend, though. It's going to be pretty quick ground, though, Jason. This rain, where is it?
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm based in Newmarket. Obviously, I'm 2.5 hours away from Newbury, but up here, I can tell you it's very, very quick. We're desperate for some rain up here. A lot of the Guineas contenders, they've been working on the synthetics, whether it's the Cambridge Road, the Alba Hatchery, been incredibly tough to get them on the turf. So be interesting to read the trainers who've got their horses well forward and how many stand their ground at Newbury. Going to be very warm leading into Saturday.
Right, let's have a look then at Newbury's action. We get underway at 1:25. It's a Group 3, the John Porter. We've got a couple of horses out of classics from last year. We had Ancient Wisdom down the field in the Derby, and Someway took in both the Irish Derby and the Betfred St. Ledger.
Yeah, and look, Table Talk ran the Derby. Dallas Star also. It's a real good turnout. Two of these were Group 1 winning juveniles, Ancient Wisdom, and also Sunway. So that they were winners under very, very testing conditions. Strictly on the ratings, you're going to be all over Ancient Wisdom or Sunway. That's the way that the people will play it. The fast ground form in here, there are two horses. Table Talk, who managed to win the Melrose. That was under quick conditions, but he's got quite a bit to find on the ratings. And then you've got Bellum Justum. You remember him winning the blue ribbon, the trial for the Betfred Derby. He loves fast ground. The last time we saw him, he was picking up a whopping £830,000 over at Kentucky Downs on rock hard ground. That's the key with him. He goes well fresh and he won't mind the ground.
Yeah, it'll be key this weekend there. So Bell and Justin, yeah, big prize stateside. So he'll handle the ground. Right, what about the fillies? And actually then the Fred Darling comes along at 2:00. 16 have stood their ground. And this could have obviously pointed towards the Betfred 1,000 guineas. This is a real deep renewal this year, though, Jason.
It's a cracker. Lots of horses we had so much fun with. Betty Clover was a superstar last year. We've got four horses, that are officially rated up in the hundreds at the moment, and they're going to need to take a significant step forward this year. They want to be climbing up into the 115s, 120s, up around there, to be giving themselves an opportunity in the classic itself. Mountain Breeze will be popular. She's off the back of a couple of victories over in Dubai. Simmering had some tremendous juvenile form last year. Could just be the superstar that Ollie Sangster has been looking for. Christoph Sumion, he comes across to ride for Ollie Sangster and also for Joseph O'Brien a little bit later on. But I have to say, for me, Nadra, who goes for William Haggis and Kieran Fallon, she made her racecourse debut up at Haydock and won, pulling the proverbial cart. She got a figure of around triple digits on her racecourse debut, which was pretty impressive. She was going to line up in listed company at Newmarket, was a non-runner, self-certificate. So already they were thinking pattern class. And that team, it could be a massive season for them. Here's one for you as well. Before the trials are out of the way, William and Maureen Haggis available. Around about 25s, aren't they? Something like that for the Trainers' Championship. Just see if they started off with a classic contender, they'd be much shorter.
Yeah, interesting. That's another thing to bear in mind. The Trainers' Championship, which will take us throughout the summer up to Champions Day. And that brings us on to the Greenham as well, of course. This is over 7 furlongs. This is a trial for the Betfred 2000 Guineas, but a cracker in its own right. We've got Rashabon, not seen since Chinned in the Jean-Luc Lagardère. John Thady Gosden, we've got Chancellor. A lot of news about John Quill as well for the Judmont team. He could be a potential Guineas contender for them. Godolphin represented. A lot of talk this week about Rogue Alliance. Lots of offers for him after their racecourse debut. Again, another deep classic trial, the Greenham.
Yeah, it's a cracker. It's a cracker. You know, we've got a couple of these coming in, having had a couple of outings. So you're thinking Fitness Edge, Al Qudra. Of course, he managed to make all in the old Al Rayyan last time. Group 2 probably wasn't the deepest company. If you look back in the second and third, were rated around about 105, somewhere like that. But he was super, super dominant. John Quill, who's to know what's going to happen with him? He was all the rage, wasn't he, when he won at Sandown? He went to Doncaster. It didn't happen at all. He's now shipped across. He's with Andrew Balding and comes under the Could Be Anything banner. We talked about Joseph O'Brien. Saracen, I watched his win back at the Curragh up the hill. He's a massive prize, about 20s. I watched his win at the Curragh. Real low daisy cutting action, suggesting that quick conditions are going to suit. I mean, if I was to be nailed down, I think that he's far too big a price with Joseph sending him over. Obviously, a little bit of a bullet to fire to find out how good the others are. They've got Scordy Champ, haven't they? That's the big gun for the 2000 Guineas at the moment. But Chancellor, he's got to be the one. He was just about favourite, wasn't he, for the Champagne when he burst out of the started stalls? Prior to that, he'd looked very, very good.
There we are, the Chancellor then for John Thady Gosden, the Cheveley Park Silks. That's all about potential with the Guineas trials. And then we've got the Spring Cup, of course, which is kind of a rerun of the Lincoln usually. It's a straight mile, and this is all about maybe horses that are not quite shown it's the handicapper or have got a few pounds up their sleeve.
Yeah, I mean, there's only one horse in here, and he's a complete outsider of the party who's really hiding a little bit back at the moment. That's Dragon Leader. Do you remember how good he looked as a juvenile? Very, very good. What happened? As so often can be the case with many of them, 3-year-old career in the wilderness, never really sighted at all. He turns up, he's well handicapped, he's had a wind operation. He's the longest price on the board, right? I think he's got to be an each-way play. If you want a selection towards the top of the market, James McHenry for Ed Bethel and William Buick. Buick is as hot as ever, riding boatloads of winners over in Meydan. And Ed Bethel, tidy winner, of course, in the week. Yorkshire managed to get the job done for them at Kempton. The squad are in tremendous form. He's worthy towards the top end of the market. I will be having £1 each way on Dragon Leader.
Couple against the field then in the Spring Cup. That's the first for race at Newbury. Covered up the idea of the strongest bet on the card this weekend.
I'd be tempted because of the ground conditions that Bellum Justin, the Balding team, they look set for a massive season. They've got Kalpana, who's bound to be in all of those top division middle distance races. The squad are quite forward. He loves fast ground, and that's got to be a negative with Ancient Wisdom and Sunway, who will be in front of him in the market. So Bellum Justin.
Brilliant stuff. Bellum Justin then to look forward to in the Open at Newbury. It's the start of a brilliant summer of action. It comes thick and fast with Newbury, then Newmarket Classic Trials next week. We're into then the Betfred Guineas Festival, the Derby Trials, the Betfred Derby, Royal Ascot, and so on and so on. It is thick and fast. Jason, we're with us every step of the way. Thanks for joining us this weekend. Wherever you're back in, the very best of luck.